Christian parenting.
Welcome to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo, and on this podcast, we talk about raising kids as Christian parents. It's so very important for me to honor God with my family and the 2 kids that He's given me. But honestly, it's not always neat or easy or tidy, but it's always worth it. So join us every week to laugh and learn together on this beautiful and messy journey of parenting. By saying that you might hear some banging because we're getting a new roof this week and they are trying to finish up. But I'm telling you, this dog will not stop barking. She thinks there's someone at the door every 2 seconds. I'm like, oh, good thing you're pretty because you are really not smart. She really gets like completely freaked out at all the banging. So I was leaving earlier to take her to doggy daycare to get her out of my way and to stop the barking. And I was going to the car, can't get her to come on because she's licking a chicken bone. I'm like, where did you find a chicken bone? Apparently, folks that were doing the roof yesterday decided to have lunch in my yard and just left the wings there, like the leftover bones. So that's fine. That's what's going on here. But today we have a very exciting guest. I don't know how I get from chicken wings to Lysa, but this feels right for me. So dear friend, love her to pieces, Lysa TerKeurst. If you don't know who she is the president and founder of Proverbs 31 Ministries that reaches millions of women and people across the globe. Really, she's been writing for decades. Author of so many fantastic books and Bible studies, and one of the best speakers I've ever heard. But the last, I would probably say, I'm guessing here, maybe 5 or 6 books that she's done have all gone New York Times bestseller and just blown things out of the water. And here's my hypothesis. Here's why I think she resonates so well. Not only is she extraordinary writer, she is so gifted, but she and also brings truth. Everything she does is from a biblical lens, which is brilliant, but she's empathetic. Like she knows how to go into struggle and pain points and talk about them in a way where you feel like she's sitting right next to you and you feel less alone. And this book and this topic we're going to talk about today is no different. She talks about trust, and she has had to live this and learn this the hard way. She's had a significant broken relationship, but she talks about all of us have to work on trust. Are there relationships in your family or with a spouse or with a sister or your kids or friends at work? Like there's always going to be relationships that break down, and then we kind of wall up and we decide we're not going to trust anyone anymore. But that is not biblical. And so we want to hear what God has to say about why trust is important, why that's a key essential to relationships. And she gives so many practical points while being Lysa all about and just empathizing and really seeing you. So I know this is going to reach everybody at a super practical, but also profound level. And I can't wait for you to listen. One of my most exciting things about Lysa is that she is a grandmother. I had to count the other day. She's got 6 already and 2 more on the way this year. 5 of those are just joining the family this year. It's like baby land over at her house. And so if you're not following her on Instagram, go on over because you can just see the cutest babies ever, and it makes me want a baby. One more thing, I want you to go to Instagram today on Part of the Mess because I'm going to share a picture of the last time. I think this was the last time I was with her. We've been friends for years, but me and Jeannie Cunyon, who was on last week, and my other friend Terry Flanagan, who you've also heard on here, we all went down to celebrate her new wedding and just do kind of a delayed bachelorette and do a little girls weekend. And we were in Florida, and I rented a convertible because I thought it would be hilarious and fun, but turned out it was a little stressful. And so our hair was everywhere. I was driving. Lysa's in the front seat. Jenny and Terry are in the back. And I'm going to post a picture and you will die because Lysa looks like a complete supermodel. The 2 fools in the back, Terry and Jeannie, like we were crying laughing because their hair was everywhere. They looked like it was just crazy. So go get a good chuckle. And while you're over there, I'm going to do a giveaway. I've got one of Lysa's new books here. I Want to Trust You, But I Don't. And this is the topic we're talking about today. But I had 2 copies here. So I thought let's do a giveaway with one of those. So if you will share this episode somewhere on your social media and then tag Pardon the Mess, I will pick one winner this week, and I will send one of you this copy of this book. So enjoy, my precious friend Lysa. And I really just am praying, just sitting here going like, Lord, help us heal in relationships, help us know how to move forward. And I'm really excited for you to get some really practical ways to do that today with Lysa. Well, greetings, Lysa TerKeurst. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was thinking about you this morning. I have no idea how this came up. Oh, I know, because I have gray hair. I was like, man, she offers the best wisdom and sometimes just real practical tips. Did you know years ago you were at She Speaks and you paused and said, I use mascara on my grays? And it was like mind blowing information. I was like, I've never thought of that. And since then, I've upgraded to like the dye or like the wow powder that you put in. But we were, this is how it came up. We were looking at a picture of my brother from my sister's wedding, and you had just told me that, and he had highlighted his hair. He looked awful. And I was like, bring me your head. And we mascaraed his head for the wedding so he would look good in pictures. And he kept going, is it running? Like, is my hair black? So thank you for practical wisdom and biblical truth, Lysa.
You're welcome. I have very few beauty tips, honestly, Courtney, but every now and then it'll just pop into my brain.
And then another one I learned from you recently was at your house, and I had no idea that there was a wax that you could put on the bottom of a candle to keep it in place. Like, where has that been my whole life?
Sticky tack.
Sticky tack. Okay, I think I've been using like saran wrap, tape, foil. Never knew there was sticky tack. We'll be adding that to cart.
Yes. Okay, you want to know my favorite one right now?
Yes, do tell.
I don't know if the tubes of toothpaste are designed this way, or if it just happened to be that like one day I discovered it. I have no idea. But you know how it has the big cap that flips over and it has like a flat round, cap on the end?
Yeah.
If you take that and set that part against your counter, and it comes up and there's like a squared off end. So if you set it like this, you take your toothbrush and you can hang it on the end. And it's just perfect when you're in a hotel room. So it's the perfect toothbrush holder.
What? I always use the wine glass, like a cup holder. Wow. This is why they pay you the big bucks.
How are you today years old and just finding this out? I don't know. But this is why it takes whole community, a whole village, people.
That's correct. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to jump from toothpaste holders, toothbrush holders, straight into distrust and trust. And so your latest book is I Want to Trust You, But I Don't. And every woman listening said amen, because either you've had a betrayal in your marriage, or a child is gone through mistrust or distrust issues, or your own family or friendships. This is an all play, all skate kind of issue. So can you catch people up? Probably 99% of the people know you and know what you've been through. But for the people that don't, can you tell us why this was personally important and how you came about thinking about and working on trust?
Yes. So it came about because I needed to personally work on trust. And when I am writing a book, I don't start from an area of success. I usually start from an area of struggle. So I was very much struggling with being skeptical of people, and honestly feeling unsure of what else God might allow in my life. And if I'm brutally honest, it's not at all that God ever betrayed me, but I was having feelings of deep wounding that God allowed certain things to happen, and then other bad things to happen on top of bad things on bad things. And so it was making me almost feel a little betrayed by God too. And I didn't want to become a cynical, skeptical person, and I could feel the edges of that really leaking into my soul, and I knew that if I wrote a book about this, then I would have to approach the topic with a lot more urgency, a lot more desperation, a lot more honest humility, that it was almost like confession time. I'm like, hello, my name is Lysa, and I have trust issues.
Right.
And I think sometimes we hear trust issues and we think of it as like a dirty word or a bad diagnosis, but really all of us have trust issues. If you look at the statistics of lying, The average American lies 4 times a day. So think
Wow.
about how many lies that is. And unfortunately, to get that average, they broke it apart a little bit. And the average male lies about 6 times a day, the average female 2 to 4. So I guess that's how we got the average of 4 times a day. But regardless, that's a lot of untrue statements that we're having to navigate and trying to figure out, who can I trust? Who can I not trust? What is really true? What is not true? What is kind of gray-ish and left up to interpretation? And what if they're interpreting something differently than I'm interpreting something? And it all just
Right.
starts to feel very risky. And especially
Yeah.
in an election year where we're
Yeah.
going to hear a lot of things that the minute we hear it, we instantly think, that's not true. He's not telling the truth. She's stretching the truth. Or
Right.
things aren't really as they seem. And when we live in relationships, close relationships, that we kind of tilt our head sometimes and go, is that true? And we're hearing on the news things that aren't true. It just starts to feel like the world is becoming a very unsafe place, and relationships start to feel way too risky.
Yeah. Would you say 100% of us have trust issues?
I would say if you have a belly button, you have trust issues.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. And then, gosh, I have so many questions. Okay, so how do you know? I know from friends of mine that have gone through some really hard relationship stuff, they are often made to feel crazy, that it's not the other person, that it's them. So how do you even begin to look through that to go, what part is actually God nudging me, or a red flag or a boundary I need to put up? And what is, like, what do you do with that consistent statement that it's you, it's your problem, you're the one that has trust issues, when it's like, no, this is actually off?
Okay. Well, I think first of all, we have to understand what trust is. Trust is the oxygen of all human relationships. So you start to starve a relationship of trust, and the best you can have at that point is maybe your relationship can be put on life support. But most of the time, broken trust over a long period of time and consistently done, it is a relationship killer. I mean, that's what it is. So trust can only be built
Yeah.
back time plus believable behavior. Both parts are crucial, the time and the believable behavior. So to rebuild trust, you've got to have time plus believable behavior. That believable behavior part is where this concept is going to come in. And the minute I say it, I guarantee you, people are going to be like, But
Yeah.
the only way you can know believable behavior is if you, investigate. Now,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, I think a lot of us Christian women, and I won't put this on other people, I would say confession time for me as a Christian woman, for some reason, I felt it was incredibly wrong to investigate. Now, I do want to caveat that by saying we don't want to get obsessive about it. It's not like we suddenly want to be digging into everybody's everything, trying to find fault, because what we go looking for, we're going to find. So if we go looking for the worst side of everyone, then we're going to start to see the worst side of everyone, right? But there's a big difference between mistakes that people make and patterns of behavior they refuse to address. I'm going to say that again.
Yes, please.
There's a big difference between mistakes, we all make mistakes, and patterns of behavior, bad behavior that other people refuse to address. So if you are with someone who has a pattern, a repetitive pattern, a track record of telling you the sky is blue when it's very much gray, that can be bothersome. But if you have a pattern of behavior where someone says the sky is black when it is very much light blue, then you're going to start to have this weird dynamic happening, and it's going to start messing with your brain. And I went and had my brain scanned, by the way, because I wanted to see the effects of betrayal trauma on the human brain. And Dr. Amen, who is the one that did my scan, he held up a normal brain which honestly, I don't know what normal is, but basically a brain that had not experienced betrayal trauma, and then scan of my brain. And what it revealed was this thing called a trauma diamond. And certain centers of my brain, and these centers form a little triangle shape in my brain. Those centers of anxiety are pretty severe and stay lit up even when
Wow.
I'm quiet and not active and nothing is threatening me at all.
Wow.
And yet those anxiety centers stay lit up. Now, here's the good news. The top part of the diamond, which is where PTSD is often stored, that is getting better in me. And so the counseling work that I've been doing, the Bible studies that I've been doing, being educated, even therapeutic techniques like EMDR, it's working. So that's good. And, my therapist always reminds me there's more healing than there are problems. And so I do believe that I'm getting better. The other 3 anxiety centers are still pretty lit up. And, so one part of it was encouraging to me. The other part of it was a little like, wow, I have a lot more work to do. But the point in me saying this is that broken trust affects us on a much deeper level than just having our feelings hurt. I will never again hesitate to use the words emotional abuse, because when someone is intentionally deceiving you over and over and over, that is a form of emotional abuse that shows up on a brain scan.
Wow.
So you can't tell me this isn't serious. It's very serious.
Well, I think back to one of your first books that you had 25, 30, 35 books, but one of the first ones that went New York Times bestseller was you wrote about women's struggle with eating. And I remember you saying that the publisher was like, this isn't really an issue. And you're like, oh yeah, it is. This is an issue in the Christian culture, which I love that you look at a project, you're looking at where you're struggling, and then you're seeing, is this a common thing? Well, yeah, if we have a belly button, we have trust things, but you also attack it from a biblical foundation. Also, I love that you bring in the neuroscience. So tell us what your hope is for this one as people interact with it and this book and the study. What do you hope they receive from all the nuggets in there?
Well, first of all, when someone picks up, I want to trust you, but I don't. The first thing that I want them to feel, more than being taught, more than learning a bunch of facts or strategies or even therapeutic wisdom, the first thing I want them to feel is understood. Because one of the most healing things that has ever happened to me is in one of my counseling sessions with Jim Kress, who most people know is my personal therapist. I remember he said, Lysa, why don't you just tell me everything that has happened? Just get it out. Those things that have been spoken over you that were so deeply hurtful, the things that were done to you that were so shocking that they still haunt you to this day, just get it out. And so I just started telling him, these different events that happened to me in certain relationships just in the past, 10 years that were so incredibly painful. And I remember he sat there and listened to everything. And then he looked at me and said these beautiful words, I believe you.
Wow.
And I realized in that moment, taking those first steps of healing, it's not necessarily even about fixing our problems. It's just a beautiful thing when another human dares to bear witness to what we've walked through, and they tell us, you're not crazy. I believe you. What happened was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. And, yes, you have had your trust shattered. And it has impacted you, but it doesn't have to defeat you.
What I would do if I could go back and stay organized and keeping track of our family memories. I started out so strong, and now with a rising senior, I'm going through thousands of photos and trying to organize them. Please learn from me and start now. I truly wish I'd had the Family Album app when my kids were little. The Family Album app was created to give parents a secure and easy way to share photos and videos with loved ones. Let me tell you about some of the features for Family Album. First off, the app automatically sorts photos and videos by month and year while displaying each child's age. That allows you to go back and swipe back in time, see how your children have grown. The app is an orderly and totally secure haven for your family's personal memories. I love that there's no unwanted eyes, unlimited storage, and that it's totally free. And with unlimited storage, there's no more worrying about running out of space when you're just trying to relive those heartwarming moments. Another cool feature about the Family Album app is currently you can order 11 free photo prints every month to be delivered to your home. What a gift to have some actual physical pictures on hand to reminisce on some of those amazing family moments. So to all the parents out there still trying to use other messaging apps for your kids' photos, it's time to level up your family photo game with a free photo sharing app. Head over to the App Store today, search Family Album, download the app, and start creating a legacy of love, one photo at a time. We are well into the school year, and if you are looking for a little extra support for your kids in their academics, or if your kids are looking for an extra challenge in school, I highly recommend IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids ages pre-K to 12th grade. It covers math, language arts, science, and social studies. IXL is designed to help them really understand and master topics in a fun way with positive feedback. And the best part is that IXL is so easy for parents. One site gets you all you need, and IXL customizes learning for each child and their needs. Everything on IXL is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it simple to find activities for the exact skills you are covering. And IXL offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids are learning to use the program, so you can feel confident that your kids will gain an understanding of the skills they are learning. Make an impact of your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Pardon the Mess listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. Wow. You always do that well. And as being your friend, you've done that really well for me. And I've noticed that about you. I'm a fixer. I jump right into okay, here's 3 things we could try. But that first step is so who you are, and it's really healing and helpful. Let's talk about parents. So our stories are different than our kids, and it doesn't matter if it's a failed marriage or a best friend or a church hurt. So how do you separate when you're working on trust issues, but your kids are too, and those worlds overlap? What have you learned from that process?
It's messy. It's messy, and it's going to be hard. Here's often where the rub happens. So we've already talked about how trust is rebuilt, time plus believable behavior. We've already talked about trust is the oxygen of all human relationships. But now I want to give you a formula for what must be present in order for there to be trust in a relationship. And the 2 things that must be present are safety and connection. Now, here's where the rub comes. Some people, especially in a family dynamic where, like me and my kids had our trust broken. And so me and my kids need to heal. And it was traumatic on every level. But here's the rub. Some people, when they've experienced a betrayal, they start to prioritize connection so high. They're just desperate for connection that they minimize their own need for safety. And so maybe they go back to the person who hurt them and were so confused. Why do you still desire this connection that you're ignoring these ongoing traumatic red flags that you're just going to get hurt over and over and over again? It's because something in that person, whether maybe it's their wiring, maybe it's their personality, maybe it's just their own wounding, but they are so desperate for connection to be reestablished that in order to have that heightened connection, they diminish their own need for safety. Then you can also have the opposite to happen. Some people, when they've been betrayed, they start to prioritize their safety and they no longer want connection with anyone. They start to become negative and cynical and skeptical of everyone because connection, it feels too risky. So I would rather have safety than I would rather have connection. So the goal for healing, no matter whether you're on this heightened end or this heightened end, the goal for healing is to bring those two back in tandem. And we want connections that are safe, right?
Love it.
Here's what's complicated. Trust cannot be rebuilt or even repaired or worked on in isolation. You can't isolate from all people and work on trust, because trust can only be fixed in the context of relationship. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with a person who has devastated you. It doesn't have to be that relationship, but you do have to start to stick your toes in the direction of some relationships, because that's where trust is fixed. That's where trust can be repaired. It's in the context of relationships. So that's part of the passion of why I wrote, I Want to Trust You, But I Don't, is because whether you're in a family dynamic where there's been betrayal and everybody's trying to heal and it's super messy and everybody's responding in different ways, or you're in community with even a bunch of girlfriends, like you and I are close personal friends. We have a whole group of girlfriends. We get together, we travel to see each other. It's wonderful, amazing. Yay, Courtney DeFeo, love you and have for a long time, right? But even when we get together, we're bringing our own trust issues, right? And sometimes my trust issues are going to bump into your personality, or your past history is going to bump into something that I say that's not very sensitive, and a trust issue could form, right? And so it is really important. Part of what I've done in I Want to Trust You, But I Don't is given us some tools of examination to discover where are our roots of distrust coming from. And that is self-exploration that is so needed for us to do. So there's a whole section on red flags and roots of distrust, because sometimes we say, oh, I feel like I just can't trust that person. But maybe it's not for a super severe reason. Maybe we don't trust that person because they keep forgetting to pick up items at the grocery store that they promised to bring to the next gathering, right? That's a problem, but it's not like a major severe problem. But still, it can make us feel like we don't trust that person. But then it's a whole nother ball of wax if we don't trust that person because they are displaying incongruity, which is when they say one thing, but their actions display a different thing. Or if they're showing lack of integrity, they just tell bold-faced lies and expect you to go along with them and believe them. So I think it's really important for us to examine, where are these roots of distrust coming from? And also, really important, and if you're a note taker, if you don't take notes on anything else, I really want you to write this one down or make a mental note.
I'm writing down.
Because this is going to feel a little shocking, but it's true. Distrust is sometimes the wisest choice to make.
Okay, I'm writing
it down. In other words, God calls us to forgive other people who hurt us, who wrong us, but God doesn't command us to trust all people that we do have to forgive.
Right.
So forgiveness is a command by God. Trust is very conditional.
That I'm going to have to sit on for a moment. Hey, can I ask you a personal question? You can say no, thank you. What did that look like heading into your new marriage. And I love Chaz so much. I'm just like smitten in the most appropriate way. Like it's the best. But I imagine, did you figure out your trust issues and then said, now I'm ready to date? Or were you walking in that scared?
Okay, well, I was walking into it very scared because remember, trust can only be repaired in the context of a relationship.
Right.
And so let's take it all the way back to this thing called triggers. Triggers, do you know what a trigger is? I know you do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay. Perfect.
Define it just for fun. Define it.
Okay. So a trigger is when a reminder of past pain brings those feelings into present day situations and makes them feel alarming because either the memory is so painful or it looks eerily close to something unsafe that we've experienced before, and suddenly we feel unsafe all over again.
Right.
And it can be different person, different dynamic, right? And so when I started dating, I felt an enormous amount of pressure to pick up on every red flag of every person that I went out with because I was the person who was prioritizing risk over connection. And understandably so. You know?
Right.
So what I started to discover is that when I would go on a date, if I went hunting for all the ways that this person fell short, I would see nothing but all the ways they fell short, right? But if I went on the date determined to just learn something about myself, what I needed, what I didn't need, what was okay with me, what wasn't okay with me, it became a much more safe situation for me because I didn't have to pick up on every red flag. I just had to pay attention to things that didn't feel okay for me, you know? And different people have different tolerance levels for different things. Some red flags are super obvious. Other red flags are just personal preferences. But regardless, if they're bothersome to you, then if you go into the date looking for what can I learn about myself, it became this amazing exploration of me understanding what I still needed to work on, what I was okay with, what I wasn't okay with. So getting back to the triggers, when I finally landed on Chaz, I had a little more confidence because I had gone out with several people and I sort of had a 6-week thing where it's like I would go out with someone for 6 weeks and then I would start to say, great guy, not my guy. And so I had this pattern at 6 weeks of breaking up with, people. But then when I started dating Chaz, we passed that 6-week mark and suddenly I became terrified because I realized I was no longer in control. Like my feelings were tipping over an edge where I started prioritizing connection and then questioning like, oh gosh, is this safe? Is this safe? And I remember I called one of my close friends, her name is Mel. And I was like, Mel, I can't keep dating him because he could absolutely hurt me. He could absolutely break my heart at this point. And I just don't know that I want to take that kind of risk. And so I had to work through that. But what I was really facing, Courtney, is situations where he would do something and it was completely innocent, but because it was so close to something I had experienced before that wasn't innocent, then I was having a hard time telling the difference between, is this a trigger from past trauma or is this discernment that something really is wrong? And I couldn't figure it out because there really is a paper thin line between triggers from past hurt, like this is reminding me of something, but does it mean that it's really hurtful, or discernment where it's like something's wrong, something really is wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so I sat in front of one of my friends who's a therapist, and she said, investigate. The only way that you're going to know the difference between those two is to investigate. And one of the number one things that gave me confidence in my relationship with Chaz is when I would ask very reasonable questions. I wasn't getting obsessive about it. I wasn't shopping for pain. I wasn't asking for details that didn't need to be asked or whatever. I
Yeah.
just asked reasonable questions, and how he answered me helped me see, no, this is a trigger from the past. It's not discernment that something terrible is going on.
Ugh,
And that helped me a lot. There
yeah.
was an instance that I talk about in the book where one day Chaz had come in town, and we were saying goodbye. And the way he turned from me and wheeled his suitcase away really quickly, it triggered something so deep in me, because years before, when someone had packed a suitcase and wheeled it away from me quickly, it meant that they were going to do something that was incredibly hurtful to me.
Mm, wow.
And so I tell the story in the book about, it's almost the same exact motion: taking the handle of the suitcase, turning around, walking out to a truck, except two totally different people, two totally different scenarios.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
person, I asked about it years before, and they got defensive and turned the accusations back on me. With
Yeah.
Chaz, I asked him about it, and he was very calm. He asked me, what do I need? Do you need to process this? Do you need to look at my phone? Do you need to just sit down for a minute and have me hug you and tell you everything's okay? Like, what do you need? And the reason why that was so important is because he didn't mind me investigating so that I could figure out if I was safe or not.
Mm,
And that was very healing for me and made me feel safe.
yeah. And it also makes me want to go, can we all get married for the first time when we're 50? Because gosh, like having you two, watching you both be so whole and so healed and coming together from that place has been really beautiful. Just to watch the maturity and the stability that y'all have by the fire that you've both been through. It's been really cool to watch. Do you have time for one more question?
Sure, but let me say one thing about that too,
Yeah.
Courtney. It is a blessing because we do bring a lot more spiritual maturity, emotional maturity, healing, and all of that. But we also bring a lot less innocence. And so if you got married when you're young and your relationship has stayed faithful, there's this beautiful innocence about that should never be discounted. So I'm always so careful not to paint this picture that's like, yay, we finally at 50 years old discovered real love, and don't you wish you could have it too? It's not that. We have both made the very best of really horrific situations, and it is beautiful, and it is thrilling and wonderful. But on both sides of our own trauma stories, there is still a deep amount of grief that I think sometimes just looking at our wedding pictures, people wouldn't recognize.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, there's deep grief that that Chaz and I don't share children together. There's a lot of
Yeah.
deep grief there because while he can be an incredible stepfather, he isn't the one that helped bring these children into the world.
Yeah,
And so
that's
he
good.
can love them deeply, but he doesn't have all the history, all the memories, all the times that I dreamed of sitting on the front porch watching our children give birth to children, then seeing our grandchildren run across the front yard. He doesn't have those memories. And the same thing, like when his daughter recently graduated from college, he had dreamed about the picture of he and his ex-wife and his daughter and his son, the four of them standing in front of the fountain. So when they were married, they talked about, their daughter's college graduation a lot. And so he had this beautiful picture in his mind, and that picture was no longer going to be reality. And there was grief there. Not because he's disappointed in my relationship with him, not because either of us are disappointed in our marriage. We're so grateful. But there is grief because where there has been broken trust, not in our relationship, but in previous relationships, broken trust will always lead to deep grief because it takes away an innocence that is beautiful inside of relationships.
Wow.
Broken trust corrupts every bit of the part of love that
Mm.
should be safe and life-giving. And so that's why it's crucial to repair what has been broken in us because of broken trust. And the good news, though, is that while broken trust and betrayal is life-altering, it doesn't have to be life-ruining. So that's the beauty in my story with Chaz.
Wow.
But never discount the fact that there's still grief, but
Yeah,
there's
that's
also
good.
celebration too.
That's good. Oh, thank you for sharing that. One of the things I love about you, and we'll end here, is that I know you would want to get on the phone with every broken-hearted woman all day long if you could. And so I love that you write these books because you're able to reach millions and thousands upon thousands of people that are walking a hard road. And you do that at Haven Place through your retreats. So here's another group of thousands that are listening. What is one last encouragement that you would leave to them if they are walking? I know in the book you say, just because you've been hurt, you don't have to live hurt. We can go down that lane, but whatever just God's putting on your heart to a last encouragement for that massive group of people that have been betrayed or walking through distrust.
What you've walked through, and maybe what you're currently walking through right now, it is part of your story, but it's not the whole story. And sometimes I think when we've been so deeply hurt and had our trust shattered and been in situations like the book title, I want to trust you, but I don't, sometimes it can feel like the sum total of our life has equated to us now living in ruins. But I just want to encourage you to know that it's not going to be this way forever. And there's still a big world out there with new people to discover, new places to go. And there's still fun to this life. And the challenge that I want to give you is listen to where you've reduced your life down to the limitations of living hurt. And how you can listen for that is when you start saying, I can't or I don't. Because sometimes when we say, I can't and I don't, that's going to lead us to a path of we won't. And so start to listen to the I can'ts and I don'ts. I did this and I started calling them rebellious acts of resilience. And one time I went to the beach and the ice maker was broken, and I literally stood in front of the ice maker, and I was so frustrated. And I was like, if he would have been faithful, then he would still be here, and he would know how to fix the ice maker. But because he's not here, and because I got a divorce, and now I don't have any ice at the beach, and I was just really pitching a fit. And then I caught myself when I said, I can't fix this ice maker. I caught myself, and I said, but what if I could? And I Googled directions. I'm terrible at following written directions, so that was a disaster. Then I YouTubed it, and I found a video. And I thought, what's the worst that can happen? The ice maker's already broken, so I'm not going to break it worse,
Yeah.
And so I did everything that the video said. And as God is my witness, I fixed that ice maker.
Yes, you did.
I heard the ice rumble around and then finally fall into the cooler that I was trying to put ice in. It was a moment of epic victory because it was a moment of healing. It just really was.
Yeah.
And it reminded me again what I walked through. It changed my life. It altered my life. No denying that. But while it was life altering, it doesn't have to be life ruining. And look at me. I am surviving. And today I fixed an ice maker. So maybe I'm even thriving. And things don't look like I thought they would, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. They're actually pretty good.
So great. I love you. I'm grateful for you. I'm so excited for like I said, probably millions that will get this truth and just such encouragement from you. So well done, friend.
Thank you, friend.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do two things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.
The Humana Gold Plus Give Back Medicare Advantage Plan gives you $1,368 back each year in your Social Security check. Choose coverage that helps you keep more money in your pocket. Learn more at gethumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. The Part B Give Back benefit pays part or all of your Part B premium, and the amount may change based on the amount you pay for Part B. Limitations and restrictions may apply. Humana is a Medicare Advantage HMO and PPO organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal.